Hey guys, you are listening to the Absorbcast, and in this episode, me and Caitlyn talk about project-based pricing versus hourly pricing as a freelancer or business. And we're going to dive deep into why we strongly believe project-based pricing is what you need to be doing in your business.
All right, hourly versus project pricing. So for Absorb, we charge project prices. We did attempt hourly for a little bit and very, very quickly found out that that is not what we should be doing.
It's not sustainable, and any freelancer or a company in the creative field charging hourly, it's an easy way to kill your business.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not a good foundation to model your business on to either grow, scale in any way.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll set you up for failure along the road too, because your clients are going to start to question either one, why is it taking so long if you need the extra money? Or two,
Yeah.
why is this so cheap if it's actually good?
Especially if you got contractors, employees, or some people looking, you gotta find that work. And if you're charging a model it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It very quickly we realized it didn't make sense because we were being punished for being efficient.
Exactly.
And I always think of, you pay extra to expedite something from Amazon. The product doesn't change, but you get it faster. So it's like you pay more for that. That should be a luxury to get something done quick. And I always think of this. There's a story with Picasso, I believe, where he's asked to, he's at a market or restaurant somewhere, and he's asked by somebody to sketch. They recognize him. They ask him to sketch something on a napkin for him. He sketches something on the napkin, and he charges them like it's some ridiculous amount. It's like $1 million or something for this napkin. And this lady's like, why would I pay that? Just I watched you do that in like 5 minutes. And he's like, no, it took me 40 years to be able to do this in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's because like you're getting so much more. And typically you're getting way more experience quicker.
Yeah.
With that kind of stuff.
Because the higher that you pay, what you're paying for is skill and expertise. That's exactly what you're getting at that point. And someone who is very skilled and has high experience in something, they can get things done faster because they understand what they're doing. They understand the problem that they're trying to solve and what they need to get to.
Yeah. And I think if you hire someone to do something and they get it to you the next day or the same day, and it's what you wanted, that's all that really matters, right? Like you shouldn't look at it like, well, they didn't put any time into this. It's like, no, they did. They put their life into it most likely, especially in the creative field.
Yeah, definitely. And so it kind of brings up an interesting point because there are some times that like hourly might make sense, but just not in the creative field.
No, and it's hard to figure out because hourly you're selling your time. And in the creative field, your time is so valuable, it's almost priceless with what you can do because it's skill, knowledge, and talent, like all this stuff you put. There's so much. Most creatives in anything do it in their off time. Yeah. They're into it. They put so much effort into learning and crafting their skill.
So they're passionate.
Yeah. So, and it's hard. You can't really put a price on that, on like how much is it for someone who's, we'll say a painter who's been painting. Well, it's like the Picasso thing, 40 years of painting, and you ask him to paint something.
Yeah. So in the film industry, you also have something with day rates.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, so day rates are a thing. There's half day rates. I've seen people charge for the week. And now that's where that can make sense if you're a contractor. If say I'm just a DP or a grip, I got my own day rate on that. Where that doesn't make sense on some levels where you are the production house organizing the whole thing and you're being hired in the marketing world for us. So it doesn't make sense for us to give like a day rate on a project where we are putting together the team who may have day rates themselves, which varies drastically. And usually that's set, they set that themselves. So that's where I think that makes sense there to have a day rate. I'm not saying that's wrong. Day rates, I don't know. I don't really count that as hourly. It can be because you're selling your service for an amount of time of the day. And that's where I don't know how to put it into words. Where I think if you're doing hourly makes sense if you're doing something that's laborious, that's something that needs to be, it can be repeated over and over and over. And typically It's jobs that can be filled easily or used. Like if you're a human being that can move something or operate something, I think hourly makes sense in that way. Where I don't know, it's so hard because like project based or flat rate, flat
Mhm.
flat rate based pricing can also make sense. So if someone's hired to like unload a truck, you pay them by the hour, and they need the money, they're going to take longer. But if you get promised them a flat rate, would they do it faster? Would your business do better overall? Say you had trucks that
I would think it'd be more efficient.
I don't know. I would think so, but if it is, why is it not implemented? And I always look at that like, well, what if I paid everybody to? So you have 5 trucks come in, I don't know, some warehouse, and you have 4 employees per truck, and that takes them 4 hours, 5 hours to unload each trailer, or less than that, depending on how quickly they move. See, like that can vary.
Yeah.
But if you give them all a set price and like, hey, when it's done, you can go. Like how much it's going to cost. You know your expenses on your business all the time. You know that they're going to try. But then you also got to implement something if they go over,
Yeah.
I guess. So,
Yeah. But I mean, that's what we do with our projects through Absorb also. So we do have flat rate project pricing, but through trial and error, we figured out that we had to really put limits on revisions,
yeah.
timelines, and we had to be very specific with our clients that even when we deliver something, they have a certain amount of time that they have to respond to it. Otherwise, we can start to charge them more because
Hmm.
then we have freelancers and contractors that we work with all the time that if their budgets start to go over, then we are punished for that.
Hmm.
When if it's on the client's side, then the client should be the one paying for that.
Hmm.
And yeah, definitely learned that through trial and error and setting very clear expectations for that. But when we were attempting to charge hourly rate very early on, whenever we first started Absorb, um, it was I won't say that it was a nightmare, but it wasn't good because
No,
like
well, I think
our hourly rates were cheap. Like I think we were charging $60 an hour,
I
maybe
think we
something
started
like
at
that.
50.
50 or 60, yeah. So we were keeping it very cheap because the clients that we were getting, like they were honestly the clients were above the skill level that we had. So we were charging them
Hmm.
way lower because we wanted the projects for our portfolio. But then the work started to be more than what we were expecting. And there was one project that halfway through we said, wait, we're putting in way more hours than what you should be paying for in this. And we took a cut in that.
Hmm.
And so we told the client, like, look, from here on out, $500, or I don't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
we just threw a number out there and they agreed to that. And because we actually had a very good working relationship with this person, and they understood that like we needed this to build the business, and they were getting a high value out of
Yeah.
something that we were benefiting from too.
It both sides win, I think,
Yeah.
in that case when we switched to project based, especially on that client, it was like,
Mhm.
well, now you're getting exactly what you pay for, and there's
Mhm.
no surprises on either end. There's no like,
Exactly.
oh, we went over this many hours, you owe us this.
Yep.
There's no surprises. You know what you're getting, you pay for it. And then when they get that, if we go over, say they get 2 revisions on a
Mhm.
video project or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, and they hit those 2 revisions, well then, then we can rediscuss later if they need more. Like
Mhm.
it's already you already set that standard right up front.
Yep.
That's the one thing I love about project based is like it's all set up front before the project starts.
Exactly. Yes. And I mean, it creates more trust with the
Hmm.
clients too, because then there's no surprises on
Hmm.
their end. They know exactly how long something is going to take and we stick to it. And if it takes longer on because of our fault, just
Yeah.
as an example, then we will give them a discount or,
Yeah.
vice versa. But if the scope goes over because of the client, that's when we do a
Yeah.
scope increase and we charge them more for it.
Yeah. And I know we ran into this, especially on the video side. Just starting out, it's hard to guess how much to charge
Hmm.
for what you need to charge per hour or project based. And most time people start hourly. They pick a number that sounds great, and they don't really like see what they need. And it's like, well, an issue we ran into was we sent an estimate based
Hmm.
on an hourly rate because we guessed how many hours it would be in. We
Yeah.
try to overshoot that, but we didn't. We went way over,
Yeah.
and it was both it was no one's fault, but we went
Yeah.
way over. It just ended up costing a lot more, and like that was a surprise. We had to like we let them know ahead of time like we're gonna go in over. It was quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was like 10-15 hours over on a project that was like way overshot,
Hmm.
or we undershot the estimate and it was way over on. But those are the surprises that can either. Luckily, we had a good relationship with them, but like that could catch a client off guard, and you could ruin a relationship and a possible client for life. just
Exactly.
starting off with that.
And it's all on how you handle those conversations too, because as long as you're
Hmm.
transparent and you're upfront, anyone that's in business as a client would understand, cost and expenses and what that means. So they should be understanding in that, but don't don't overcharge them if that's the case too.
Hmm.
So for us, when we have new clients, we give every new client a like 30 to 40% discount, depending on the type of project usually, and that's for their first project. And then we'll give them a complimentary set of something in their service. So if we're doing a website for them, we'll give them like 5 hours of free website maintenance. But that's the only time that we'll ever give them anything that's tied to an amount of hours. Everything else we do based off of days.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's I don't know. We're so wired to we buy products based on a fixed price. We're so used to that. But why aren't we used to, like, when we hire someone to do something, we charge them hourly? I don't know where that. I guess that comes from like the industrial age on assembly lines, and it makes sense there. It's something that does it just never ends. It's the same thing assembling car parts. You come in, grab
Mhm.
the screw, put it here, grab it, and it's just nonstop. That makes sense, I guess. I mean, it also makes sense to give them a salary. So it's like, again, it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to justify where hourly does benefit everyone. The only person that really benefits is no, it doesn't. Anybody can get hurt. The person
Yeah.
paying and the person making the money.
I
But
will say though, salary as an employee can be kind of bad sometimes
oh
though,
yeah,
depending on
oh
your
yeah,
employer. I had I had a job right out of college that was salary, and I was so excited for it, but they were paying me crap. Like
mm-hmm.
they paid me absolutely nothing, and I was working 70 to 80 hours a week working for them straight out of college because I was a junior designer. And I got burnt out so quickly, and there was no compensation for overtime. Like there was
No,
nothing because it was salary.
and that's where if if you set that
Yeah.
ahead of project based, you would have came out so much ahead further as a
Yep.
contractor on that.
Yeah. Well, I was a full time
I
employee,
know.
not project based, but yeah. And so, later on, after we started Absorb and I started to see the business side of it, I realized what they were doing was this was an agency that I worked at. They were assigning the cheapest person that they had on staff to the most important projects that were costing them the most. So they had the least amount of expenses for the most revenue that was coming in. It was like the clients were upset with me, like it wasn't working well for them and it wasn't working well on my end. And it was a bad experience overall. So yeah, I'd say there are times and places for each of them, but overall salary, it can get toxic depending on your work environment, but as
Hmm.
long as you set those expectations up front and you know what to look out for, I think you should be good with it.
Salary is something I didn't even think about when we first decided to do this episode on this.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. But that salary can definitely go, two ways there. It's easy to be taken advantage of in
Yeah.
salary, and that's where hourly you would have come out ahead on that.
Mhm.
But that's just bad business, bad
Yeah.
management. That's just bad people.
It was just a bad experience
Yeah,
overall.
but like I never understood why we're wired to buy products at a certain price. We look it up. We know how much it is. We go buy it at any store, typically, depending on what it is. You know what it's
Mhm.
going to cost. When you buy it, you're normally not getting ripped off. With people and creative services, why don't we just look at it like that?
Mhm.
Hourly is like, it's just, you hire someone to have a bunch of wood that needs to get chopped. And it's like, how much is it worth to me to have all this wood chopped if I'm going to hire someone to do it? Instead of like, I don't know how long it's going to take someone, because you might take them, 10 hours to do this. So I'll charge $10 an hour. But I just don't know. It just doesn't, there's so many things that just doesn't fully make sense to me with hourly, where project based makes total more sense to like just know what you're getting ahead of time and purchase like a product. When we set out to do something, we look at it like we're selling a product. Any creative usually is selling a service or product. Your service
Mhm.
as a product, I mean, it's something you're bundling up and you're selling. You're going to get something out of it, and you sell it that way. And another thing too is we talked about experienced people get punished under hourly.
Yeah.
And we wrote these numbers down because I did my math wrong earlier when I was talking about this with Caitlyn. So let's say for in the video world, video editor charging $50 an hour, edits a simple video. I say simple, who knows, maybe it's a hard video. 10 hours, that's $500. And an experienced person who can edit really quick, and editing especially varies so much, charges $100 an hour. but they can do that video in maybe 2 or 3 hours. Now they made $200 or $300. And they could even make a better video. And that could be, maybe they're doing more post-processing audio. They're doing more animation. Someone more experienced can do more quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just being punished for that. That's not sustainable. So then if you look at that model, the more business you get, the more you lose then.
Yeah.
You are running your business into the ground because the better you get, the less you make. Mm-hmm. And that does not make sense. And people need to, especially artists, and it's hard, but look at your art and you're worth more than that. And just look at the long run. If you're trying to scale to do something sustainable, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, you should be thinking about how many clients you can realistically take on at one time. If you are a solo entrepreneur or you're a freelancer or something, think about realistically in a week, how much work can you get done? And that's running your business too, and then scale your pricing based on that. So if you say, I can handle 1 or 2 clients max, well, your pricing should be higher because you're going to pay more attention to those 1 or 2 clients. Those 1 or 2 clients are going to be getting a luxury premium experience from you.
They're going to get more focused energy.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're paying an hourly rate and you price yourself too cheap for them, then you're going to be running yourself into the ground and everyone's going to lose in that case.
Also, I think another thing that project-based pricing does is when you do have the initial moving forward of the project, the signing of the contracts is like, not only do you get everyone know what they're going to get, it makes the process so much easier to extend it. Instead of just having like, here's an hourly rate, it just could be ongoing. It puts an end date, a due date on the project itself. So now you have a point to where you can renegotiate or extend something or open up a new contract or extend on that. And it makes sense in that way. Hourly, it's kind of like, it's going to take how long it's going to take. And I don't know how much it's going to cost. Like, it might take this much time, but if you do fixed price, it just makes more sense. I can't stop saying that.
And how are you supposed to trust someone, like your clients? How are they going to trust you if you say, well, I don't know, could take 50 to 100 hours?
And that's kind of what you have to do. And now you can, I think project-based is better for you as a business, even if you're starting out and maybe you are undercharging. It's still a better model for yourself to scale. Well, I forget where I was going with that. I was trying to think of like, how do you, because you got to come up with a price. You got to come up with a price, obviously, for yourself on something.
Yeah.
But for me, it's hard for me when I'm hired. Say I'm hired just as an editor, or I'm just a second shooter. Those are 2 different jobs for me. Or if am I hired to go out and film, an interview? If someone goes like, hey, can I hire you to go shoot an interview for me? And like, they don't need editing, nothing. Well, it's like, is it 1 person or is it a 2-person interview? Am I showing up there with someone that's going to be conducting the interview? Do I need 2 cameras, 3 cameras, 4 cameras? Is this a panel? Is it a podcast setup? Do I need mic? There's so much that can go into my setup, the packing, the gear I would take. The setup time varies so much. It just doesn't make sense to where like, well, tell me what it is exactly you need, and then I'll judge it off there. But you had a good way to figure out what your rate should be. And we gauge our project based off of time. Obviously, we look at our time and what goes into the energy and effort, but we do kind of gauge it around an hourly rate that we come up with. And what was the math that you had for that?
The math.
The math.
No,
idea.
The one thing neither of us are good at. No. So I can't take credit for this. I think I saw this on LinkedIn. I don't remember who the original poster was, but kind of a cheat if you can't figure out what your rate should be, is, take whatever your salary would be, if you were working a full-time position.
Like an ideal salary you think you need to survive.
Yeah. Yep. Take that and drop the zeros, and then that's your hourly rate. So if you think
zeros?
you
Like
need...
drop the...
Yeah, so if you think that you need, $75,000 a year to survive, then you should be charging $75 an hour.
Yeah. We shouldn't say survive. We should just say what you want your living expense to be.
Yeah, exactly. So in, designer terms, kind of an average-ish as of right now. The design industry is so hard to price for because it depends on what industry you're specialized in and what you do. But a ballpark, an entry-level designer can make around 70-ish thousand a year. If you're an entry level, charging $60 to $70 an hour is fine. a sort of mid-range salary for a designer would be around $110,000 to $120,000 a year. And then if you're in kind of an executive type level or in a leadership position, you could be making 150 or more, again, depending on what industry you're in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, as you grow and you kind of expand within your career, you are able to make more money with that, and your pricing should reflect that.
Mm-hmm.
So for Absorb, we do charge project pricing for everything, but to get our project prices, we have to gauge it based off of hours, you know?
Yeah.
And so for us, we usually gauge anywhere from like $180 an hour to $200 an hour, depending on what the service
Yeah.
is, because that's not for everything,
Yeah.
you know, because we're a full service agency. So like, you know, marketing and brand design are very different than video production, and we do charge them differently for those things. But those are kind of the ballpark numbers. So we will, you know, get with our team whenever we have a new project. We'll talk to our team. We'll say, okay, here are all the things that we have to solve within this, about how much time in terms of weeks or days will it take to complete these things, and then we kind of work backwards from there. So
Mm-hmm.
if something is going to take a month to complete, well, then we break that down into 4 weeks, and we say that's 40 hours a week, and then base all of our math from there, and then we've got our project price.
Yeah.
And we always try to buffer that too.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
we'll kind of add a little bit of fluff, and we'll kind of phrase it in a way where the client gets, you know, a certain amount of revisions, or they get, you know, a certain amount of extended time, or they get like complimentary maintenance on a website,
Well,
or
the
something
fluff's
like
there
that.
too, where like if someone needs a quick change, it's not,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like not really enough to charge a whole,
Yeah.
go through a whole thing. It's just kind of like we can just do that real quick.
Yeah.
I do want to say too, a lot of the contractors we've worked with that we reached out to for certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and they charge hourly, and we kind of tell them how we work with the project based. They've always made more
Yeah.
with that and have been happy about that, and
Mm-hmm.
they feel more rewarded for what they do. It's
Yeah.
they make what they're worth, really, is what it is.
Yeah. And something we've noticed too is a lot of freelancers don't realize their worth.
No.
And maybe this is just us being very trustworthy as an agency, but just one example is, you know, we had a designer a couple years ago that the client that we were working with needed a set of icons. That's what it was. Like they just needed branded icons for their brand. And we had a designer that we were outsourcing this to as a freelance project for them. And they wanted to charge us, I think it was like $40 an hour or something like that. Like it was relatively low. And we, you know, asked them like how many hours do they think that it'll take, and we ended up getting a budget approved that was much higher than what their hourly rate was. And so we told them that. We told them, no, like
Mhm.
we're going to give you, you know, a flat rate project price, because I think they were going to make maybe $200 or $300 off this project.
Yeah.
And we paid them over $1,000 for it,
Yeah.
because the client was paying us, you know, more than that, and we were the ones, you know, taking care of all the communication and
That was the
contracts and
budget we
everything.
had for that. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, clearly this is the budget the client was willing to spend on this, and this is what it's
exactly.
worth. No one else we knew could,
Exactly, yeah.
provide what they
Like
could do.
we
So
trusted them with that,
yeah.
and we knew what their services were worth to us, and they were like so
Mhm.
thankful for that, and I'm pretty sure they raised their actual
I
prices
hope
after
so.
that too.
Yeah, I hope
But
that a lot of our contractors do.
yeah, but it's crazy to see that, because that wasn't the first time that that's happened. Like we've had multiple people that
Mhm.
usually have an hourly rate, or you've been asked about day rates before too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a weird position to be in, where it's like,
Mhm.
well, like we see the value in project pricing, so let us explain this to you,
Yeah.
and you know.
And that's the day rate stuff. I do want to say it does make sense.
Mhm.
When I'm hiring a team out, that does make sense to hear that. And it's usually like, half days, like 4 to 5 hours or something like that.
Mhm.
That will make sense. But I like, I don't personally feel this way, but I don't feel like if I need them for 3 hours or so, and they're half days, 5 hours, I'm not going to find busy work to do for like 2 hours. Where
Exactly.
you can put yourself in a position for somebody to do that,
Mhm.
where like I don't know what they, like a grip, and then having you clean up or something. I don't know typically where, out here in Indiana, what a grip is expected to do here than out in LA or, New York. It could all be different, but it's where you could put yourself in a position where you're not needed that long. You could leave early and come out ahead too, where it could go the other way. I don't know. Day rates aren't as bad as hourly rates. Because, well, one, you're contracted just for the day. The project's just for the day or two or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. So I guess, yeah, it doesn't make sense for where we're at in the video world here on the
Yeah.
video side for me to give a day rate.
Yeah.
It varies so much because we offer so much.
Yeah.
We don't just or day rate, or even just me personally. I'm not just going to come as just a grip. If you need that, I can. But it's like, well, do you need an actual camera operator?
Mm.
Do you need someone to just come light this stuff? Do you need me to provide all the gear? Because then it's like, do I consider myself like a rental house from my
Yeah.
because I'm using Absorb's gear?
Mm-hmm.
Because we come with all that stuff too. So it's tricky.
And
To
insurance is a factor in that too.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just another layer of complexity.
Yeah, well, it's like I was asked to go film I asked how much I'd charge to go film an event, and it's like, am I just running around like B-roll montage kind of thing, or are you
Yeah.
asking me to like go up? Am I miking like a podium for somebody to speak with a multicam set? Like
Yeah.
that can mean
And
so many
it's
things.
also how big is the event, how long is
Oh
it,
yeah,
and where is it? Like these are all factors. Because that's the other thing too. If you're in an industry where you have to travel for your work, so video production, for
mm-hmm.
example, if you were to go to an event and you're charging hourly, do you charge for the time on the road?
Yes,
Yeah, like
yeah,
that's still odd to me because then it feels like you're like getting ripped off to the client that they have to charge for time on the road because then it's like, well, are they going to hire someone that's closer to where they are just because of this, or I don't know. It feels like there's
yeah.
a lot of factors
Mm.
in there.
But like that's where project based is. We account for all that,
Yeah.
and all into one bundled price. The
Yep.
travel, setup, the whatever. Maybe I'm just talking video side right now,
Yeah.
but it's hard to make a case for hourly.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I keep thinking assembly lines make sense, but then what if you did just pay them for the day? It's just salary then at that point. And does salary make more sense than hourly?
Mm.
Does it? Do you think?
I don't. I don't. It
Because
depends.
salary
It
would be
depends
like
on the
the
work.
project. I'm doing air quotes. The project
Yeah.
based on an hourly like labor job.
Yeah. It depends on the work because I've had good and bad experiences with salary work. I've never worked hourly as a professional in
Mm.
the design industry. I've done it, like retail positions and food industry and things like that. But in my design position, I've never worked hourly there. And I don't think it makes sense to,
Well,
you
there's
know?
probably a reason why there's not a lot of hourly positions in the creative field.
Yeah.
It usually is salary. But then I don't
And
understand why it's not salary in places that's not, like
yeah,
even
and
retail.
this is just clicking for me now too. I feel like when looking at places like Indeed, for example, or job boards,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. When people are looking for freelancers or they have positions for like part-time positions or something like that, I usually see things for like video editor, $16 an hour or
Yeah.
something like that,
Well, yeah, I've seen like YouTube editor and it's like $15 a video. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Well, that first of all, it's ridiculous. Are you
And
just asking somebody to import it off the SD card and cut the beginning and end and export?
yeah,
Because
go to Fiverr for
uh,
that.
I don't even think it makes, yeah, it just,
No.
that to me, in video specifically.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing as somebody comes up to like a graphic designer and is like, how much for a logo?
Yeah. Oh, that makes me so
Yeah.
mad.
Well,
Yeah.
same thing. Like someone comes up to
Yep.
me and asks like, how much for a video?
Yeah.
What? Like you're talking, first of all, you're not even talking length. And I'll say like, well, it varies. And then usually they come back as, well, let's say 2 to 5 minutes. I'm like, it varies drastically,
Yeah.
drastically.
Yeah. And it's like how much footage is in that too? Do you have 80 hours worth of footage that you have to watch to make a 2 to 5 minute video?
That's something too. Yeah, especially. Yeah, that's especially YouTube video. If someone's sitting there talking to a talking head and they just keep screwing up and you're asked to edit that and you're
Mhm.
charged for the video, you're better off charging hourly on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And this is here's an example too where back to my $50 an hour for a newbie and then the $100 for like someone more experienced, and then like those are not numbers we use at all. These are very
Yeah.
generic numbers for math reasons, why I'm just throwing that out there. But I totally lost my point. What was I saying with that? Once numbers enter my head, I just
Can't handle it.
oh, an example was it was just asked recently, like how long does it take to edit a video?
Mm.
And I have this like, it's not scientific, this equation that I came up with this is video specifically, how to gauge how long it would take to edit a video is I take however long it takes to record the video. Say it's a 1 hour talking head that took 2 hours to film. I take that times however many cameras there are. So 2 hours, 2 cameras, it's 4 hours, right? So, yeah, 4
Yeah.
hours. Oh, doing this math in my head. It's not even hard math. 4 hours. And then I multiply that again times 2. So that's 8 hours to edit something like that. No animations, like all that stuff can vary, lower thirds. There's so much that can vary in that edit too. So I think 8 hours is a good cushion where something, that's what I expect out of a beginner. About 8 hours on something like that. Where I know I could do something like that, say it's just talking head, multicam switching, like a podcast format. You could do it in like an hour, maybe even quicker. And that's where like that window is massive.
Yeah.
Massive. And I don't think a lot of people hiring would, you're not in the world. It's hard to guess how long it would take and how much it would cost. And then in that case, back to the hourly thing, if that's something I can do in about an hour, an hour or two, I would make way less, no matter, I'd have to be charging a lot per hour than that person that takes 8 hours to do. They'd be coming out way ahead.
Yeah.
On one job.
Yeah. That's where I have an analogy of you can get something to the words are good, fast, and cheap. And you can pick 2 of those. And we've actually had to use this with a client before that they insisted they wanted to know how many hours it was going to take. They insisted for an hourly rate. And we basically told them it's good, fast, and cheap, and you can choose 2 of those things. Do you want it good and fast? Well, it's not going to be cheap. Do you want it cheap and good? Well, it's not going to be fast.
Yeah, exactly.
There's always going to be something like you can't have all 3 of those things.
No, I like
the
pick 2 because it's totally true. Pick 2.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to what I was saying about like the hourly person came out ahead
on
that one project.
Yeah.
But as a business, that's not feasible. You're not going to work. That's one job, one video, 8 hours on something that can take up to an hour. Like as that person gets better, I just want to make, because like what I said before, that person working 8 hours made more than the person that would take 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean their business is going to be able to scale and sustain itself on that. Because one, you're building your business off, everything needs to take this long.
Yeah.
And that's going to start hurting you in the end. And you're just going to get better
and you limit the amount of work that you can take on too.
Yeah. Especially if you really want to expand, that's not a good model.
Yeah.
It's just not. If you're someone who can edit and somebody asks you to edit something and you just want to make some quick side cash, I guess. But that's it. Sorry, I just wanted to go back to that to make, because the hourly, that's where the hourly, it seems like you'd make a lot first, but it's not.
No,
it's not good.
Not usually. And also, if you are throwing out an hourly rate that say you're charging $200 an hour or whatever it may be, clients are going to ask you why. And
we've been asked
that's such a weird question.
Why does it cost that much?
Yeah, it's like because it does.
Yeah,
you don't ask. It's take it back to your grocery store comparison again. You don't go up to the counter with a box of crackers or whatever, and you ask the clerk, "Why does this cost $3?" No one asks that.
No, because they don't look at it like it's a product. It's like a service that they can find someone else to do. It's like everybody's so unique in their own way. Like you sell your own product. You can say what you are worth and what you can provide is worth. No one else can do that.
Yeah.
No one else can even, they can, and to say somebody can do something better than you is very subjective.
Yeah.
And then that may not, and if someone's not going to hire you over that, then that means you aren't what they're looking for anyway. You're not, that's how I look at it. Is like, whether you can afford the product or not, is it what you need or what you're looking for or not? You don't, what's that expression about? It was like a car. Like you don't need to buy, not like bragging about us specifically or anything like that, but like, you can, everybody needs not everybody needs a car, but in some areas everybody needs a car. You can get anything that's going to drive. A little Honda Civic, perfectly fine, it's going to do it. Or you can, go all out and blow all the money on like the Mercedes Benz, and it's optional. Like, is the one thing still going to do what you need to do? That's fine. Hire that person, buy that car. But if you want to go, with the premium, it comes with a premium price. Not all of this is the same. Not everyone prices the same, and everyone's unique on where they want to charge and what they're worth. But yeah, we've been asked that, why does it cost this much? And that's a hard answer. That's a hard thing to answer in any field. Why does it cost this much? Yeah. We've been asked that
I've been asked that a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that part of that comes down to how we explain what we do. So for us, we say, well, it costs this much because we understand your brands. Like we take the time to do a discovery. Like we don't do any project without taking on a discovery phase up front.
Yeah.
Like we really understand your brand, your goals, your objectives, what this project is going to do for you before we even take it. And because we do that, we've also had projects where a client will come to us and say, I need a, corporate film, or I need this, or, whatever. But when we do our discovery phase, we find, well, that's actually not what you need. You need to invest in an advertisement to go on Hulu, or, whatever it may be. And we've had to kind of steer it. But because we take the time to really understand and listen and get to know them, we've never had a problem with that with the client. They've always trusted us.
And it's normal to get asked that. You know, it might feel insulting at first, but that's normal. It's their money. They're going to protect their business, their money. They want to know why.
Yeah.
But I would say too, like I always ask, is like, usually if they ask why does it cost so much, they already have an idea of what they have in their mind.
Exactly.
And I would ask, well, what did you think this was going to cost?
Yeah.
And you kind of get that whole budget talk going in there. But usually they have a number in their head, or what is this too much? Because there's times where we charge and like they don't even question it. There's some clients that they don't care.
No, it's like they have a check like already made out to absorb, and they just fill.
Yeah, and it's like you get those too where it doesn't matter. But but most businesses it
does matter.
Every dollar needs to be watched.
And realistically, if we were hiring someone out too, I would be asking.
I understand it. So I guess the other creatives out there, if you get asked that, why does it cost so much? It's not bad.
No,
they're not. I guess depending on their tone, but
why does it cost so much?
So why does it cost? But it's normal to get asked that, especially when they're not in the industry, and usually they're asking that because they either heard someone else or know of someone else that can do it cheaper. Yeah. So then you got to justify why you're more. Yeah. And you should know in your own market if you are kind of where you're at. Are you charging on the low end? Is that that could be a model. Go in and just scoop up all the cheap.
If you wanted that,
you could do that. Or are you charging a little bit above average and you're in the middle, or are you charging the premium? And you should be able to explain why you are where you're at compared to other people. And that, I don't know what graph it is. I'm building a graph in my mind.
This way or this way.
I can't show it here, but yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important, but I think it's also on the client's end then to give what you were expecting to pay. If you already had it, expected that when we first started, that's something I seen that changed a lot, was like this whole, what's your budget? How much do you cost thing? Kind of just, it goes away after a while.
It does.
Like as you start getting with more professional clients, it's kind of like, that's where project-based are like this is what it is. That's it.
Yeah.
You want it or not.
We've also had some clients that have come to us and said, I have this much money. What can you do? Or and those are my favorite clients.
Those are the best.
Because they're so transparent. And we've had some that we've had to turn away too. Because their budget was so low that we're like, we can't
try.
We can't actually do something. But we can, we usually offer them alternatives, or, we have a few people that we do recommend. Like we'll give some other work too. But go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I was say that's if you're hiring a creative, I think it's way better. Go ahead and give a number you already want to pay. Like don't waste both. It'll waste both your time.
Yeah.
If and you can kind of work within that. But I agree. Those are one of my favorites. Is like when the client already knows, because they know what they want.
Yeah.
If you're confident and it's somebody you want to work with.
Yeah.
It's like
definitely. Well, and they've already priced it. Like when a client comes to you and they say, hey, I have this much budget, then I don't know if anyone listening to this has ever worked within budgets with large companies, and it's difficult to get there. Like there's a lot of approval processes and things, and we've had to go through that too, where we've gone out of scope with something and we had to go through a whole nother approval process, and then they've got a 90-day accounting like policy and like it's there's a lot of barriers there. So if you're clear and you're upfront with this is how much it's going to cost, it's easier to get it approved. And you don't have to go through all those hoops.
And it's easier to figure out like what can you actually do in that instead of playing around. It's just you get away. I think when we started working our way up into more I don't want to say more professional clients, bigger clients. Yeah. Money's looked at like a resource.
Yeah.
And I feel like in some smaller businesses, and rightfully so, it feels like it's my money, and I'm worried everybody's after it kind of thing.
Yeah. Rightfully so. I mean, again, I'll stay absorbed. We'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's where I'm just kind of pointing out a fun fact, I guess, of our experience with when these businesses start looking at like resources, there's no games. Like here's what we can spend. What can you do for that? Yeah. And like we give our project base, here's what's going to cost. We can, usually if they give us a budget, we don't try to like maximize that.
Oh yeah.
We look at what they need, start from there.
Yeah.
What's the minimalist thing we could do, and then build it up from that within that budget.
Yeah. But we also give multiple budgets. So every time we send out a proposal, we always give them at least 2 options. We usually aim for 3, but we always give them at least 2 options. One that hits their budget usually perfectly or slightly under, one that's a little bit less than that, and one that is more premium.
That's the best case scenario. And what I shouldn't say best, our favorite case scenario is when we're given a budget from a client, they know what they need, we sit down with that and we see what can we do if we just blow all this, what was the biggest thing we do with maximum return? And then we do, well, what can we do to still get close to the maximum return for less? And then what's the bare minimum we can do with little and at least some return on, on something? Like what's the most we can do? And I think that's the best way. That's the benefit of project pricing too, is we're able to set 3 different budgets with 3 different options, or I'm saying 3 hypothetically. And I don't think you could do that hourly. I mean, I guess you couldn't just guess. That would be so complicated to start gauging out, especially when you're working with teams and contractors and stuff. That's just, I can't even wrap my mind around that.
It's a lot to manage. Yeah.
It's a lot to math. It's a lot to math.
That too. It's a lot to math.
That's a lot to math. But project-based just makes it's easier to gauge it's easier for your contracts to gauge what is expected of you and what's expected from the client, or what the client is expecting. And it's easier in every way. It's just, I think I'd love to hear if anyone has any arguments on how hourly could be better.
Oh, definitely.
Because I don't see it.
Yeah. I don't see it either.
I don't see it.
I think the biggest takeaway from this, besides that we think project pricing is better, biggest takeaway would be, when you are scoping out your projects, you do have to start from an hourly rate and be honest with where you are at with yourself. If you are an entry-level designer, you should be pricing less than what the agencies are pricing,
and
right?
Yeah, and I know that's hard. Be honest with yourself, but try not to undershoot yourself. And it's you kind of got to do your own research in the field and see what money's being thrown around in that.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of good resources out there. I mean, frankly, you can just Google hourly rate for whatever position. We've done that before, and
it varies all over. But if you're in a something you could do online anywhere, I mean, you're kind of wherever the highest bar is set, that's kind of the bar anyway.
Yeah. For the most
part. Yeah.
So I think the biggest takeaway there is just really being truthful and honest with yourself and what your value actually is and what you're worth. And a little tip for that too, if you throw out your pricing and every single client accepts, you're charging too low.
Exactly.
You should have some clients that are rejecting you, Not every client, but you should have 1 or 2.
I think it should be like a 50-50.
50-50? Really?
I think
like 75-25.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because you shouldn't be
all no's.
Yeah.
Unless those yeses are enough for you.
Maybe.
I don't know. You get 1 yes. No. But that's true. If everyone's saying yes to you, that's a red flag to you that's a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody's using you.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say everyone's using you, because that may not be the case.
Yeah, I guess you're using it's yourself. You're putting it yourself. I was going to say whoring yourself out at a low price.
What?
But I'm not.
No.
Know your worth.
I don't think we can say that. I mean, it's our podcast, but
I did.
Okay.
Well, I think it's yes. You get my point.
Know your worth. Yeah.
Know your worth.
And be honest with your clients in that too. Set very clear expectations. So if things do start to go out of scope, you need to be able to tell your clients why, and you need to be able to communicate with them on how it's going to increase and what you need.
I will say, no matter what it is you do, know your own process and be confident in your process and explain your process to the client, especially as a freelancer in any way, because they're coming to you and it's not necessarily you're not working within them. You're working together. So respect your own business.
Definitely. Are we done?
Yeah. I was trying to remember how we end these. Yep, that's it. Well, we'll talk to you guys in the next one.